Am I wrong for neutering a cat that was clearly owned? I run a TNR program for feral cats, nonprofit. Trap, neuter, return. I catch all of the cats and get them the medical attention they need myself out of my own pocket. I love helping them. A lot of the cats are not able to be rehomed, so I fix them and release them, get them their shots, and hope for the best. I am not a large-scale operation. Recently, I was called to an area overrun with orange cats. They were everywhere, and I mostly ended up handing it over to professionals. I did, however, manage to grab 3 very sweet cats. 2 were terrified, skinny, a little beaten up, but overall friendly. The 3rd one was a little gent. He was tubby, well-groomed, fish pattern collar, the works. My plan was to find his parents and drop him off with a warning to keep him in due to the large amount of traps being set. Then the little sprayed the inside of my car to the freaking max. So apparently he wasn't fixed. I couldn't really tell. He had long hair and assumed he was, so left my covers off. Big mistake. So apparently he wasn't fixed. I debated taking him home or taking him to get neutered with the rest. He was an indoor-outdoor cat, indicated by his collar tag, and with so many strays, I'm certain some were carrying his genetics. Ultimately, I took him with me and got him neutered. No chips, so I called the number on his tag and informed them where their cat was and gave them their time slots to pick him up or have him dropped off. The owners went ballistic. They were cursing me out and came to collect their cat not 20 minutes later, called me a kidnapper, blamed me for their child having nightmares, scared over their cat going missing. I tried to explain that he needed to be fixed if he was going to be outside, but they didn't want to know. They said I should have called immediately regardless. I spoke to my rescue friend who said I was in the wrong. Even though we know we are technically in the right, we didn't have the legal ground to do that, and it wasn't my decision to make. I did apologize, but I have blocked their numbers. The mom is flaming me on Facebook and DMing people I know. I have a duty to care for stray cats. Me knowing an unneutered male was roaming free and not doing anything about it was a concern for the said stray cats. Things are still tense between my rescue buddy and I don't completely disagree. I know I crossed a line even if it was for the greater good. People are finding out and taking sides, so I'm not sure who to really believe was right here. So, am I the asshole? Am I wrong for choosing not to pay for my daughter's university fees despite paying for her brother's? My 57 male, daughter Jane, 21 female, recently has been accepted into the university of her choice. Now, me and my wife, 55 male, are glad with the news. The only thing is that Jane got accepted to do an English degree. Now, Jane, compared to her 2 brothers, Mark 28 and Leo 30, was quite late in applying to university. When me and my wife asked her to start at 18, she claimed she was not ready and wanted to have a little rest. A little rest being going out with friends and traveling the whole of last year with her boyfriend. It should be noted that I supplied Jane with all of the money needed for her little rest. Okay, well that's your fault then. I would be like, listen, I'll pay for your school, but I'm not gonna pay for your little escapades to go travel the world with your boyfriend. That's why I'm so against parents who pay for their child to do that stuff. Like when you travel the world and do those things as an adult, you should be paying for it yourself. Your parents will pay for you to be self-sufficient, independent, to be able to do that though. But he shouldn't be like, Daddy, I want to go travel the world with my boyfriend. Can you pay for it? That's so weird to me. Now, me and my wife have nothing against Jane doing what she did. She's young and young people live to explore and do what they do. However, before me and my wife allowed for Jane to do her thing, we made her promise that when she did apply to university, it was for a degree that was worth it. Jane was going through a weird phase where she wanted to be many things that were more on the creative side. Fast forward a year later, we found out that Jane's gone behind our backs and applied for an English degree. Both Leo and Mark took medical degrees and are now very good, well-paid doctors. One would think that this would motivate Janet to go on the same path, but instead she decided to be herself. No, you can't. I don't like that quote right there is not nice. You can't look at all your siblings and say, well, we did this, why didn't you do that? Every child is different. I get wanting to have a degree that can help her in your future, but you can't say, well, why didn't you become a doctor? Because she didn't want to. It wasn't her passion. That's okay. I sat down Jane last night and told her that if she decided to go through with the English degree, I would not support her at all, and she would have to take out her own student loan. At this, she began crying, claiming that I was the worst dad ever, and had always favored her brothers over her because I had paid for their university fees. Now, this is totally incorrect. I literally paid for her travel all of last year. My sons think that I'm being too harsh and that I should simply support Jane regardless of what she chooses, but is it too much to ask of my daughter to follow through with an actual useful degree? No, my daughter's year of travel does not add up to her brother's tuition fees, not even close. For those wondering, I work as a cardiologist. Me not wanting my daughter to do an English degree is not because I'm sexist, but because I want her to do something useful which she can live off of instead of depending on me for the rest of her life.
Am I wrong for leaving my husband at home while I spend the week at my brother's because of how he buys groceries? I've been with my husband for 17 years and overall things have been great. We've had a few rough patches, but what's important to note is that he earns more than me and is the main provider. With that being said, I have a substantial trust fund that ensures we're financially stable. I work part-time as a teacher while attending university, earning less than him, and most of my income goes towards tuition. Our household income exceeds $200,000 annually, but one ongoing issue is my husband's frugality. He likes to control my spending and have the final say on how he uses his earnings. And it's worth mentioning that I've never used any of his income and have no intention to do so. However, the main point of contention between us is his frequent visits to the food banks. Despite having more than enough food at home, he insists on going to food banks to save money. He intentionally looks disheveled and uses our beat-up car to blend in, even though he's never experienced food scarcity. Am I wrong for leaving my husband at home while I spend the week at my brother's because of how he buys groceries? I've explained to him the need for food donations in our community, even showing him social media posts from local food banks. I suggested he volunteer or donate to gain first-hand experience, but he refuses. The unfortunate part is that since we've never been short on food, most of what he brings home ends up getting thrown away. Today, when I looked in our fridge, it was filled with fresh produce and meat that clearly didn't come from a regular grocery store. When I confronted him, he admitted to going to a food bank after seeing a Facebook post about a donation of fresh food. People on social media were already asking if there was any left, and there wasn't. I showed him the comments, but he brushed them off, claiming people should have gone earlier. Exhausted by the situation, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother to think things through. My husband says I'm overreacting, being vindictive, and threatened to go back to the food banks. His family is also calling me an asshole and urging me to stop interfering. And after I cut my phone off, now they're bombarding my brother. Am I wrong for not letting my apartment mate, 21 female, back inside after she got spat on by a camel? I share an apartment with another woman and we've been decent acquaintances. I'm the primary tenant, but she's subleasing and the landlord is okay with it. Apparently, she walked out to the fair that had all sorts of attractions and animals. It was walking distance about a mile away from our unit, and I remember it being advertised, but I didn't go. Well, to put it plainly, she got spit on by a camel. She texted me shortly after it happened to warn me that she was coming home, and I thought, okay, what's the big deal? Come home. I saw her coming up the steps looking miserable through the window and went to the porch to greet her. Instantly, I was hit with the most unbelievably vile smell I've ever smelled from 20 feet away. I really couldn't take it. I only got a whiff and could feel my stomach churning. So I went back inside and closed the door, and when she came up and tried to get inside with her key, I was practically begging her. No, whatever happened, you can't come in like that. She responded, I live here. Am I wrong for not letting my apartment mate, 21 female, back inside after she got spat on by a camel? I said, you can't come in like that. She was yelling, what? I live here, and then practically crying that she had nowhere else to go. I said, I'm sorry, but there's no way. I can't let that smell in here. And guys, I could smell her through the door and was literally gagging. I suggested that she find a hose or shower somewhere or jump in a creek or something, anything but coming in like that. She replied that no store would let her in, but I held firm. I held the door closed until she walked away, and she came back an hour later soaking wet. I'm not sure if she jumped in a creek or what, and then she opened the door. The smell was maybe barely better, but still horrific. Of course, she jumped straight into the shower, but I can still faintly smell it through our whole living room, and it's making me sick. Now we're both furious at each other. I'm mad that she came back in before the smell was gone, and now the whole place smells unbearable. And she's furious I dared hold the door shut and keep her out. Am I wrong? Am I wrong for kidnapping my baby, causing my husband to have a panic attack? I, 29 female, recently started working again after having my daughter 4 months old. Daycare is way too expensive, so my husband, 35 male, reluctantly agreed to stay home. It's important to know that he's been unemployed since 2021 and receives benefits. It's also important to know that he is extremely lazy. He doesn't cook, clean, or help out in any way. So I was nervous about leaving her home with her father, but I had no choice. When I came back from work, she was clean and sleeping, and the next few times I came home, he was playing with her, feeding her, or out for a walk with her. I was happy until a few days ago when my neighbor told me that as soon as I leave, the baby cries and cries for hours. She told me that she knocked on the door and he finally answered it and was sleeping. So I concluded that he sleeps all day and night, and before I come home, he pretends to care for her. To see if it's true, I decided to take the day off work and left home at my regular time. Am I wrong for kidnapping my baby, causing my husband to have a panic attack? I left home at my regular time, waited 30 minutes, and then went home. Sure enough, he was knocked out sleeping with his stupid noise-canceling headphones on. So I went to my daughter's room, scooped her up, and took her to my friend's house. I waited 2 hours and finally called him to tell him I was coming home early. He called me back saying he can't find the baby and told me he was going to call the police, but before he did, I told him what I did. He called me an asshole and a lot of other words, and when I got home, his mother was there calming his nerves. Because he has a panic attack, she also called me an asshole. My husband decided to stay at her house, and family members are telling me I'm a terrible person. I know that it was extreme, but I don't know if I would consider myself to be an asshole. Main comment says sleeping with noise-canceling headphones as the only adult in the home caring for a 4-month-old baby? Absolutely not. And I have to agree that makes absolutely no sense.